All right. Well, hey, good morning, Collective Church. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Corey Pileggi. I am the lead pastor here at Collective, and I have a couple people here on stage with me this morning, Gage and Darla. A lot of you know them very well. And I'm excited because we're going to get to know their story a little bit better this morning. They have a lot of exciting things coming up in the future. They're going to be celebrating a wedding in how many days? What's the official count?
12 days.
12 days, okay, 12 days. Yeah, we can give it up for that. That's super exciting. So they're busy right now planning all that, all the craziness of a wedding. We're super excited for them. And for those of you that have been coming to Collective aware of what we have going on, we've been asking people to make that 1-year commitment to be a member here at Collective Church. And if you missed last week or have missed any of the weeks, you still have an opportunity to do that. We'll give you an opportunity today. We've been asking people to step into this level of commitment to the church and asking people to, number one, make Sunday a priority to gather together as a church family. And then number two, to make sure that we're walking in obedience to baptism and what Jesus has called us to do. And then number three, to use the spiritual gifts that have been given to us to serve the church. And we're asking people that are making this commitment to serve at least one Sunday a month. And then the fourth thing is to walk in a level of generosity, which can be difficult to talk about as a church, but we serve a generous God and we want to be a generous people. And so we're going to call people to that level of commitment. And then the final thing is just for us to walk in unity, understanding our statement of faith as a church and just walking in unity together as a church family. And once again, we'll give you an opportunity at the end of service if you want to make that commitment to do that today. But Gage and Darla are going to be stepping into a level of leadership in the church. And what we're going to do over the next couple of weeks is kind of just unpack some of the stories of people that are going to be stepping into this kind of higher form of leadership. And so I love you guys, Gage and Darla. I love your story. They have an incredible story. We've been praying for them. Hopefully you guys aren't nervous or anything like that. I'm excited. Yeah, not at all, right? Not nervous at all. Yeah.
I'm just not going to raise my arms in case I'm sweating.
Right, yeah. Sure. Yep. But we're just going to walk through a conversation together and let them kind of share their story because God has been doing some incredible things in both of their lives and then bringing them together and is just a whole nother crazy story. So we're going to just walk through that and let you guys share your story a little bit. So the first question I want to ask, you guys can answer, whoever wants to go first. What would you say your life was like before Jesus?
Well, me personally, I mean, just to really to break the ice on that, I spent many years in addiction and far away from God. Now, don't get me wrong, I grew up going to church a little bit, kind of like on my own choice. We had the option, so it was there, but it wasn't never as consistent as it could have been. So I started my life off knowing Jesus, not as well as I have now because I never had that full relationship, but. So I spent a lot of years in addiction and just separating myself farther and farther from God and trying to find happiness in anything that I could that was of this world. So that's to break the ice on that one.
Yeah. Darla, how would you answer that question?
For me, I really just lost myself in really toxic relationships from a very early age, and that later led me into addiction for a long time. I really lost myself in just very worldly things.
Yeah.
He's clearly the public speaker.
You're both doing great. Yeah, it's, I have a similar testimony as well, just chasing the things of the world, falling into drugs and so many different things that offer us that kind of like quick fix, that quick hope, maybe a feeling for a little bit, but then it fades away, and then you kind of become ensnared in those things, and it can kind of drag you down in a sense. What would you say in those seasons was like the hope or the thing that you were trying to find or chasing?
Well, just like how she was saying, she's been lost in toxic relationships and stuff. I tried to find my happiness aside from the drugs and whatnot. I felt the need to constantly be searching for love, but the truth of the matter of it is that without Jesus, you don't know what love is, and you don't know how to love somebody properly. You don't know how they're supposed to love you properly. So, if you find what you can, that you get a little bit of peace out of something for a short period of time, but it turns, and you never get to really hang on to it because you don't have the proper understanding of what love is supposed to be. So that was probably one of my biggest driving factors for a lot of the things, because you fall into stuff because you start losing hope in what you're digging into, so you start looking into it for other things. You know, start looking for satisfaction in, like, whether it be alcohol or drugs or whatever it be, whatever you can find to escape the reality of I can't do this myself. So, yeah.
Yeah. There's some deep truths there that I think a lot of us, we kind of stumble around in the dark looking for that hope, looking for that purpose, chasing after these things that give us like a glimpse of it, but then it never actually fulfills it, and then it just becomes this spiral downward. Yeah. Darla, how would you answer that same question of like where you were trying to find hope or meaning or purpose in that season?
I come from a broken family and went through a lot as a kid. So I think as I got older, I was looking for, I don't know, maybe my own family, and I wanted looking for it the wrong ways. And I thought I knew everything. And also I think it was kind of me just not wanting to face reality and trying to maybe numb the things from my childhood. So, yeah.
Yeah, that can be a real part of it too, when you walk through trauma and then having to deal with that. Going back to what you're saying, if you don't have that love, if you don't understand Jesus, like you're dealing with this stuff on your own. And I know I can relate to that. I'm sure there's a lot of people in the crowd that can relate to that, having to walk through trauma and not having a solid place to really walk through that, and it can lead you down some pretty dangerous paths.
Yeah.
So what would you say, Gage, you can answer this first. Obviously, there's a lot of things that we could unpack. But what would you say was kind of like maybe that rock bottom moment, or the thing that kind of like Jesus got your attention, or something like that? Where did Jesus step into the story?
Well, there's probably multiple things I could say that really stuck out to me. But, during the last couple years of my addiction, and I spent probably 11 years or so, maybe more, in my addictions. But the last couple of years were the hardest, the absolute hardest. I spent a lot of time homeless, living out of my car, getting kicked out of places, including my parents' house about 3 times or so. But, I mean, I can't blame them for that. But I just remember this one point where I was in a really ugly place, still living out of my car at this point, and I just realized that there was no reason for me to have been alive at that point other than God. And I realized that God's had my back the whole time, because even though I wasn't fully ready to commit to changing anything, because I got worse from that point still, but regardless, I had that aha moment that I realized, and I told a couple people that were around me, but they weren't believers. They had no understanding of God. They didn't follow that, and I wasn't following it either. But I knew Jesus. But that was just a really big turning point that sticks with me to this day, because when you realize a lot of the things that you've been through, especially if you've done all kinds of things that would have killed you, should have killed you. It's just there's no other answer. There's no other answer. God's got a bigger plan.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Yeah, I can really relate to that as well, and I'm sure there's people in the room this morning that can relate to that as well. Kind of that moment of like, man, the way that I'm living has been very destructive to me, and God's still been there to love me, and this moment is still calling me to Himself.
Especially when you see so many other people that are either not at the same point that you are, or just as bad or worse, whatever, and you see all these other people that are dying off or going to jail for long periods of time, or just can't get a grip on anything in their life. Like I include myself in that. You just realize that, like, why am I the one that's still kicking? Why is my mind still functionable? Why am I able to process this? And that's Jesus.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
simply put.
Yeah, absolutely. Darla, how would you answer that same question? What was kind of the turning point, the moment where Jesus got your attention?
So my rock bottom moment was I really had to, I don't know, hit a low. It wasn't in the really abusive relationship I was in. It wasn't being in homeless shelters or being lost in addiction. But it came like, I distinctly remember crying on the bathroom floor. And I was crying because I lost my kids. I'd lost everything. And what I was fighting for each day was for my next high, for validation in a relationship that was so unbelievably toxic. And I remember praying, like, God, just please fix it. Please, I don't want to hurt like this anymore. I miss my kids. I want them to come home. And, yeah, I just had to really, I promised myself I wouldn't cry, y'all. I really had to hit a low. And it came from my kids. And something that was just, looking back now, like he said, it's all God. Like, I look back and I'm like, he was with me every step of the way. Every point that I was so low and running from him, he was there. And that day, I decided I was going to rehab. I called the rehab place, and the next day, I went. I drove myself on with my gas light on all the way to Wilmington. But I don't know. I just look back, and he was there the whole time. So, yeah.
Yeah. And it's incredible. Honestly, we can see where Jesus has you guys now, the way that you've been fighting for your family and everything. And we're so incredibly proud of you guys. And I know that you're not going to take any credit for it, that it is all Jesus. But we see the effort, we see the change, we see how Jesus has been transforming your lives. And it is something that we are very proud of for you guys. I know everyone in this room has had their rock bottom moment. I've had my rock bottom moment where I lost the will to live. And I know that there's many people in the room this morning that have hit rock bottom too. And I think that that's the biggest thing that we could take away, that is, even in those rock bottom moments, Jesus is right there. He's right there with us. Repentance is the idea of just turning, and he's there. That he's not far off, that he's not far away from us, that even in the midst of our suffering and our pain, he's right there, just a moment away whenever we make that decision to say, I'm done trying. I'm done trying to do this myself. I'm done chasing all these false hopes. I just want God. I just want Jesus. He's right there. So,
can I say one thing?
Yeah, go for it.
She'll say I'm the public speaker, but I don't always have the right things to say. I don't always know what to say. I'm not. Restoration of the mind is a beautiful thing, I'm still working on it, but being as it may, the biggest thing that we can share is our testimonies, because whether we have the right things to say, we know what we can say, because we know what we can share with anybody that has been through anything similar or going through the same thing, because sometimes people just need to know that there's other people that have gone through it to know that they can do it too. So that's, like I said, I don't always have the right things to say, but my testimony is what I have, and that's something that anybody that has a testimony to share, that's what you need to get that out, whether it just be for yourself or for somebody else, because you're worthwhile. Your story is worth hearing in all aspects.
Yeah. And I think a lot of times the enemy tries to convince us that we are alone, that I'm the only one going through this, or if I try to go to God or go to church, I'm going to be judged. They're going to look down upon me because I am struggling, or things like that. And it is powerful to let people know, like, hey, as Christians, we all had that rock bottom. That's the whole reason why we need the gospel. That's why we need Jesus. It's not we have everything together, we're perfect, we're better than everybody. It's like, no, we're all messes that needed a Savior to save us. And so it is powerful to share testimonies.
Sometimes you got to get on the stage. Oh.
Yeah.
Hello.
There you go.
Sometimes you got to get on a stage and make that announcement to somebody, because everybody's not going to come straight to you.
Yeah.
So whether it be in a small group or whatever it be, sometimes you got to put it out there.
Yeah, absolutely. So you both have shared, that you've spent some time walking through addiction, and then walking through rehab. What would you say that season was like for you? Maybe your time that you spent in rehab or coming out of kind of that rock bottom moment.
So I went to this program called Hope Center Ministries. It's a discipleship and recovery program. It's a 12-month program. Now, if I hadn't fully committed to it before I went in there, I probably wouldn't have been able to make it the way I did. It was very difficult at times, but a lot of times it was very easy, but that's because I put my faith in God. But I guess sometimes you just have to really know when it's time to step away from things, because a lot of times that's the only way you're going to make it out of it is if you back away from it for long enough. But genuinely, that's what taught me how to get in the Word of God and really learn what the love of Jesus really is, and really find out where my strength comes from. Not just knowing that God's had my back the whole time, but God will continue to have my back. He's in front of me, behind me, beside me, and through me at all times. And so there was a lot of down times. There was a lot of times that I felt like I wanted to walk away from it. But the biggest part is watching other people struggle, because they'll pull you down too. But the best thing we can do is always try to lift other people up that's going through the same things, and just pray, lay your things at the altar and leave it there. Leave the past behind, even because our sins, once we accept that we are forgiven, those sins are forgotten. God doesn't hang on to those things. He doesn't hold them over our heads. That's us. If you're hanging on to all of your past and everything that's really been what's bringing you down, that's on you and the enemy. But I don't know if I answered that fully like you want.
That was perfect, man. Yeah, and so you hit a good point there that sometimes our past can just hang over us like a cloud. And I think sometimes there's people in our lives that don't let us forget our past, that try to hold that cloud over us. The enemy can do it, and like you said, we can do it to ourselves, where it's like, man, I know I'm trying, I know I'm trusting in Jesus, but some of the things in my past, like it just kind of hangs over you. And so that's such a powerful reminder of, it's not like we understand that there's consequences for the things that we have done. But like you're saying, the shame, the condemnation, that's all removed in Jesus. Like he went to the cross, he bore our sins on the cross, he paid the penalty, all that shame is removed.
Yeah, that's right.
We all still, even following Jesus, as followers of Jesus, we still fall short every day too. But we can't let shame or condemnation hold us down or hold us back or condemn us.
Amen to that.
That's good. Darla, how would you answer that same question? Kind of that season transitioning from that rock bottom moment, rehab, or things like that?
So my transition period was a little bit different. I did go to rehab, but I didn't stay very long. I decided to come home because it was close to Christmas, and I wanted to be able to get my baby's Christmas. I didn't want to be away. I was trying to stay sober on my own without seeking God's help or letting him lead me. So after being sober for 2 months, I went through like really bad depression where I was extremely suicidal. I tried to kill myself. But after that, I guess I slowly started trying to pursue God, or I didn't really know what it meant. I didn't grow up in a church. So even though I had always had, I wanted to have a relationship with God, I didn't know how to do that. So even though I prayed sometimes, that's the depth it went at that point. But I started pursuing him, and I started with doing Bible studies on my own. And then me and my sister started trying to find churches, and we found one that fit us. But yeah, it was a rocky transition period.
Yeah. And it's one of those things too, I don't think anybody would have a perfect I turned to Jesus and then immediately everything was perfect after that. I went through a similar story where I became suicidal, and even months after choosing to follow Jesus, I struggled with panic attacks, and I struggled with a number of different things, and it was a rocky road, and it was a rocky transition. And I think that it's important for people to hear that too, because some people are like, oh, I made a decision to follow Jesus, now I should be perfect. And it's like, no, you're going to continue to struggle even after that moment.
It gets harder, but it
gets
easier.
harder, yes, yeah. Because now you have these things that are a part of your life that you're trying to wrestle to get them out of your life, and it's not all just completely fixed in a moment, yeah.
Following Jesus obviously doesn't mean life is going to be perfect and all rainbows.
Yeah.
But I will say for me, carrying the weight on your own gets too heavy.
Yeah.
For me, when I asked for forgiveness and I laid everything at his feet, and for me, the suicidal thing came from feeling like I failed my children. Because I did, and that's because I was living in worldly ways. But laying that at his feet and asking for forgiveness and saying, this isn't mine to carry. And that God's there for that. He carries us when we can't. And that's what's gotten me through this far. Like, it's all him.
Yeah.
I always love the statement that God's got huge shoulders. Huge shoulders. He can carry it all.
Yeah, that is awesome. That is awesome. And you guys are such a good example, too. I think a lot of times, we've talked about this before in church, we tend to take the gospel and dilute it a little bit, where it's like, oh, maybe you've done some bad things, but, Jesus loves you. And there's truth in that. But I do think there is a point, and you guys have both shared this, where it's like, I just have to admit I failed, that I'm a failure, that I'm a sinner, that I've fallen short, that I couldn't do it. I needed someone to do it for me. Absolutely. And that's such a powerful truth in the gospel of like, none of us can say, I've done anything on my own. The only reason we have eternal life is because of Jesus and what he has done for us, not anything that we did to earn it. And so part of the gospel is willing to say, I'm weak, I have failed, that I need a Savior. And Jesus is more than willing and loving to step in and to offer us salvation. But a part of it is being willing to admit that I have fallen short, I have made the mistakes, I have failed, and that I need someone to save me.
First step is admittance.
Yeah, absolutely. We've kind of already gone into this a little bit, but what would you say now, where you're at now, or getting up to this season that you're in now, what have been some of the struggles that you've kind of faced or worked through?
I'm going to be honest, because I thought about this question a little bit. Don't get me wrong, I've had a few periods of, like, major anxiety and just a little bit of struggling and whatnot, but really, honestly, it may be because I'm still fairly early in my walk. But I don't feel like I'm that early in, because, like I said, I've had a knowing of Jesus, maybe not a full relationship like I do now, but like I've told you multiple times, I know where my strength comes from now. Yeah. And even like I might battle with a little bit of my temper every once in a while, like she'll get at me on my road rage every once in a while, but it's nothing major, and I'm not saying that I won't go through plenty of stuff, but as far as for the last, year or so, like I don't really struggle anymore. I don't deal with depression. I don't deal with anxiety that much. I put it in the hands of God in all things that I do, and I know that I'm going to be okay because I'm walking the way I need to the best of my ability. Yeah. And I'm trying to do better every day, but it's a challenge a lot of times, but regardless, it's much better than what I was doing. Yeah. I'll take any struggles that I could face nowadays, whether it be a financial stress or stress of like work or just dealing with the public and in whatever aspect that may be. I'll take that any day over the things that I did to myself. Yeah. And it's much easier.
Yeah. I think a big piece of it can be too, and you shared a little bit going through rehab, kind of part of the wrestle is internal. And then eventually you get to that point where it's like, okay, now I'm facing I'm a Christian, I'm following Jesus, I'm facing external pressures, but I have that internal peace. Yeah. And I think we go through that initial, obviously when we're not following Jesus, it's all internal, there's all struggles, there's a lack of peace, and then that is reflected in our outward life and some of the consequences that we walk in. And then especially people who've really walked through the darkest of darks, the lowest of lows, and have experienced that lack of peace. When they find that inward peace, like you're talking about, maybe there's not as much of the struggle anymore inwardly, but you're still facing the outward struggles.
Yeah, that's what it is. It's that peace that you get. Yeah. I'm a super emotional person. Don't get me wrong, but I fully believe that's always just the Spirit moving in me.
Yeah.
But and like you were saying, me going through the rehab that I went through, like it was a long-term program, and there was no initial getting out of it. But they taught us, like, if you were willing to learn and listen, at least if you let the program do its thing, then Jesus would do his works in you. But they taught us how to prepare for the outside world as far as when we got out of there, because I did the whole program to the best of my ability, because I knew it was going to take an extreme situation to actually change my behaviors and change the way I was walking, the way I was talking, the way I was handling situations, handling people, and it's made an absolute world of difference. But like I said, it was a discipleship program, and following God is the only way to really change all those things, in my opinion.
Yeah. Man. So Darla, how would you answer that same question? In the season that you're in now, kind of what you've been walking through, have you faced any struggles or difficulties that Jesus kind of helped you through?
I think obviously in life we're always going to have struggles, whether that be financially or stress of figuring out day-to-day life. And there's been stressful days and days where I've struggled as far as, figuring out how I was going to get back on my feet, how I was going to get a job or get a home that my kids could come back to that was going to be a healthy home for them, and a place for healing. So there's things that are hard. They're hard to figure out, but I feel like I completely agree. Like when you've lived a life where you're walking on the line of life or death, or struggling each day, not knowing where you were going to sleep that night or what was going to happen, you just kind of, when you get to a point where you have peace in your heart, the struggles just don't seem quite, I don't know.
Seem minuscule in comparison.
Yeah, we have our struggles and things are hard to figure out, but I know that through God, everything will work out. And whether it takes time, it's today, or 6 months from now, it'll work out. So.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you another really big question that I know people are going to love to hear. Let me ask you to do a favor, pick up a little bit of feedback when you talk. Just hold the microphone up to you. There you go, perfect. But the thing that we're really excited about, so what's going on right now? You guys about to get married. So how did your story, Gage and Darla, your story coming together, how is Jesus a part of that? How did that happen?
Oh man, that's a huge story. And there's a lot of things that we probably wouldn't be able to go into detail for the sake of some things, but Lord, it's been a long journey. I have been trying to win this girl over for a while now, or this woman, I will say, and it's all been in God's timing, and I'm so thankful, because it really showed me that I had to make some changes. I didn't know that things were going to come back around full circle like they did. I had no idea. I got sent off to where I went off, and I got my health and my family life back together and my mental life back together. And and whenever I was finally able to get in contact with her, I did, and she supported me a lot of the way through. But she led me in a way that gave me a good church home coming back to, and it's a long story. It's a really long story.
I might tell this story a little bit better.
She may.
More of the details, yeah.
So we met each other in our addiction at our lowest. It wasn't ever anything as a relationship. We just knew each other, and there's many days in addiction that we spent in the same crowd and using, and I would say getting to know each other, but we were not. We were just hanging out in the same friend groups, and our daily life was getting high, and so we met each other through that. I got sober, and then I had reached out on Facebook about looking for a job, and he commented on my Facebook page or messaged me, And he was like, look, my uncle will probably give you a job out here. You can come out here. So I went out there. I got a job. He was still struggling in his addiction. I was about a year sober, I think. And yeah. So I was watching him go through his addiction, and it was really hard because I was like, man, like, if you only knew, if you would only get sober. And there was many times where, like, I would bring up rehab and where I had come from. But so when I got that phone call that he was headed to rehab, I was so happy. I had no idea that he was going to a faith-based place. And during that time, he didn't have a phone, so I couldn't really check on him or anything like that. So during that time, my relationship with God grew. And then when he had gotten a phone back, and his sister did my hair, so she, we were talking about him. When he got his phone back, I was messaging him and talking to him. And it was purely out of friendship. I just wanted him to know that he wasn't alone.
Yeah.
And, like, people back home were so proud of him. And that I knew it wasn't easy. So, and then it just grew from there. Yeah.
One Valentine's Day gift.
Yeah. He sent me a Valentine's Day gift in the mail. And I took it over to my sister's house. I was like, I just don't know if this means he likes me. Does he just want to be friends? And then I told her that night I was sitting on the floor in her house, and I told her I was going to marry that man one day. Yeah. So.
Yeah, Darla, if I could ask you kind of a more personal question.
Yeah.
I know you've shared that you've walked through toxic relationships. And I pray that there's nobody in the room this morning that is walking through a toxic relationship. But what are some things that you can say walking through that and now walking through this relationship that women should expect in a relationship?
It's so crazy to me because he does things that, like, I had to beg for and never got. He loves me with gentleness. He's so kind. Never raises his voice at me, and he always respects me. And those are things, I'm going to cry again. Those are things I've never had in any relationship. And coming from an extremely emotional and abusive relationship, physically abusive, like, it's just so different. Like, communication, I could go on for days, y'all. It's just so different. And, just not having to ask for those things. They're just there. And I know we're, fairly early in our relationship because we have many years to come. But he's just always stepped up and done those things without ever having to ask, and that means the world to me. So.
Yeah. And for maybe some of the ladies in the room that might be walking through kind of an unhealthy relationship, I want to let you know that you deserve better than any kind of abuse, physical, emotional, anything like that. Don't want to attack anybody because I know sometimes men or women that are walking as the abuser are going through their own problems. But Jesus would never call you to stay in some kind of a relationship like that where you're being treated in a way that is not at the level that you deserve to be treated. And for the men in the room, I want to challenge all of us, like what Gage has been doing, to kind of step into our role as a man, to love and lead our wives in the way that Jesus is calling us to. It is a very high calling, but it's of the utmost importance to our wives and to our kids that we're leading in a way, not saying we're going to be perfect or be just like Jesus, but we should be striving day after day to walk in that example as we lead our families. And so the final question I want to ask both of you, obviously you are stepping into a very exciting season, a lot of change, transition. You have a church family that loves you and is behind you, celebrating with you guys. Where do you feel like God is kind of calling you in the future? What do you feel like, you've walked through a lot of recovery, and God obviously has a plan for both of your lives. Where do you feel like he's calling you right now?
Well, is it staying on?
It should be on. You should be good.
Okay. So, I don't know. I don't really know how to fully answer that question yet. But, I mean, if this might kind of answer it. Yeah, I've always, like, ever since I was younger, like, I've always, maybe it's been instinct, I don't know, uh, but I've always felt called to be a father, a husband, and, and I'm talking about at a young age, I've always felt like that was where I was supposed to be, um, and that's part of what got me seeking in so many relationships, trying to find that, but I couldn't. But I feel like God's going to pave the way for us and really show us where we need to be, especially being here, because there's been so many doors that are opening up, so many opportunities coming to us. But I just feel like me and her both just have a strong desire to serve where we can, talk to people where we can, get better at talking to people, learn how to help people that may have been through the same things we have. But, ultimately, it's just I think we're just made to serve, and we're trying to do our best in those areas. We've got a lot on our plates, but we still. I mean, you and Meg are huge inspirations for both of us. Just because as much as y'all do for the church, the other families, and how well y'all handle y'all's kids, it's y'all are very inspirational to us as far as what a godly relationship, or God-led relationship and family is. But I don't know if you've got anything to say on that topic.
Looking back over the last year, like, I can just see all the ways that God has called me in many different areas. Even being right here on the stage this morning, God pulling me out of my comfort zone. But I really feel that God is calling me to serve with the kids and in education. I really want to go back to school in order to further my education so I can do that better. But just to serve and do all we can for our community.
Yeah. And we see that in both of you guys. We've seen you step up and serve in so many different ways. Just whenever there's been needs or situations in the church, you guys are just stepping up, trying to help people. We see it. We love you guys. We appreciate it. And I do believe that your story, you're going to impact so many people. I know you've probably felt outside of your comfort zone. This is the first time you've really gotten to share, at least that I'm aware of, you've gotten to kind of share your story a little bit. And I know there's going to be more moments where your story is going to be used to impact other people.
Yeah, I think I've had a little bit more opportunity than she has to get comfortable with kind of sharing some of these things. But we're working on that.
Yeah.
I'm all
so
about sharing my story. I feel if it can reach one person and help a mom going through addiction who feels like she can't come out, or someone struggling with suicidal thoughts who thinks that it's the end, or someone just going through addiction who needs help to get out. I'm all about sharing my story. So.
Amen.
Yeah, and I appreciate your boldness to do it. And man, we're so excited for you guys. Darla, man, we've seen how you've been fighting for your family. And Gage, man, it is such a cool thing to see you step into the role of being a father, and the way the family's coming together and the impact it's going to have on the kids. And
it's really beautiful, honestly.
Yeah, we are so excited to see that, and proud of you for stepping into that, and proud of you for fighting for your family. So I want you guys to know, as you step up to kind of serve the church, that this church is behind you as well, that we love you guys, that we're celebrating, and we're going to be here for you in this season. And Darla, I know the kids over at the school love you, that you've been incredible, that they see how much you care about them.
I love all of them so much. They don't even know.
Yeah. So once again, thank you guys for being bold, sharing your story. For anyone that's here this morning, feel free. I know that they would love, if you're walking through similar things or struggling or know people, they would love to have more conversation with you about those things. I know we only got to share a little bit this morning. I know there's so much more that they could share, and they would love to do that if you're walking through something, to be there for you. So just know that if you're struggling, that if you're at a rock bottom moment, if you're really searching for hope right now and you're turning to all these different things, that you have people that have been in that same season that can show you what the truth is, share the gospel of Jesus with you, and help you see that Jesus can pull people through even the lowest of lows and the darkest of darks. That's what he does. That's what the gospel is all about. And I'm a living testament of this. Gage and Darla are a living testament of that. And I know we have a lot of people in the room this morning that are living testaments of that. So feel free. I know they would love to have conversations with you if you have any questions for them after this. But if you guys don't mind, can I take a moment to pray for both of you? And then we'll transition to a time of communion.